Alright, so this is going to be my first ever time breaking down a race, obviously because it's only my second race. But although my cinematic recap made it look like I had a really good day, I can assure you it was a really fun day, but I did have a lot of issues again on the day. There isn't really going to be a structure to this video, except I'm just going to follow my whole day, break down the whole day. I've got a few dot points that I want to speak about, and we're just going to break down everything. So it could be a long one, it could be a short one, but let's see how we go. I'm going to be breaking down my race a few ways. Along with how I felt, I'm also going to be using the Coros training hub for the open water swim and the run because it pairs up pretty well. And for the bike, I will also use the Coros, but I'm going to show you guys a bit more with my Wahoo Element app. So pre-race, if you watch my nutrition video, I basically was aiming for 800 grams of carbs for the last 2 days prior to the race. And that went pretty well. It actually went easier than what I thought. It must turn out that I actually eat a lot of food. So the 800 grams was pretty easy to get in. The night before the race, I had 500 mils with a pH 1500 tablet in it, and that's what I had before I went to bed. Now, waking up, I woke up 4 a.m. for a 7:15 a.m. event. I planned to wake up at 4:30, but I was up at 4, and that's pretty much how it went. I then had 3 pieces of white toast and 3 tablespoons of honey, along with 500 mils and another pH 1500 tablet. Unfortunately, we weren't allowed in to film any transition stuff or anything like that this time compared to the last race. But basically we got to transition at about 5 a.m. I would say, or 5:30, around there roughly then. Did everything on the bike, put the nutrition on the bike, probably had way too much nutrition for how cold it was. But did all that and then basically met Daniel again because we were going for a pracky swim. That would have been about 6:30 a.m. So we went out for a practice swim to see how rough the water was. I always struggle getting on the Ironman cap, but we went out for a pracky swim. It wasn't, I said originally it wasn't too rough when you swam out. It actually seemed okay. Despite me going under and over waves, you could see it on the way out. I didn't think the swim was going to be too bad, but I didn't test out swimming side to side with the waves coming on a diagonal. So fair to say, when I went out there for that first turn, I was pretty shocked, but we'll get into that. 15 minutes before the swim start, I had a 30 gram gel, so the PF 30 gram, I think it is. That's what I had 15 minutes before the swim start. And then obviously jumped into line at maybe 7:07, then got ready and jumped. I was in the top 30 and obviously did not come out the top 30. The swim did not go how I planned, but I was basically in the start around top 30 to top 40. And yeah, I was wearing a chest strap or HRM as well. But what we're going to do is I'm going to screen record my Coros screen, have it up, and show you guys exactly how I felt. It gave a good representation along with how I felt and how I was doing. Despite my watch showing clear different times to what my Ironman time said I was, which was a little bit of a factor as well. I thought I was going faster than what I obviously was. But let's get stuck into it and let me screen record this Coros. So you can see I went out pretty hard in the first 500. I was at my 37 strokes a minute, which is what I pretty much average in open water. Obviously 130 pace per 100. So I went out pretty quick. The plan was to hold on to 135 to 140. But as soon as I turned that corner, so that corner, you can basically see we turn the corner and then we basically have like a K swim down. It wasn't the straightest swim you can see. It went up 130 pace average out to that first turn buoy. Well, looks like I was going a bit quicker than 130. 120 is probably not the smartest idea by me. And then came down all the way to a K. The K was pretty rough siding, to be honest. I feel like this was a really good swim for swimmers, or like experienced swimmers. I think my lack of swimming experience and lack of swimming in open water experience really showed. I feel like this is very much like an experienced swim, or whether you grew up swimming or whether, no matter how confident I think I was, I think it was very much a swimmer's swim, which is, I know it sounds a bit weird to say, but that's just like me reflecting on the race. It was a very, very hard swim. That whole 1K stretch, you basically had like this diagonal chop along the swim, and if you didn't time your breath right, you pretty much like just drank water, to be honest. Or I was finding it really hard to sight. I just timed the sighting wrong and I couldn't see the buoy, I just see the wave. So it was a pretty rough swim, to be honest. So yeah, basically I was just going and I was just trusting where I was going. I think I swam a little bit wide because I ended up with like 80 meters more than what I should have. But I think that came down to the end rather than this. A little bit would have been picked up in this. But yeah, so at the moment for the first 1K and a half, I averaged 151 pace per 100, which was okay. I wasn't really checking my watch then. I was just swimming to how I felt was going well. So we turned the boys, come back into town. We're doing about 144s, 140 average. And this is where the Aussie exit obviously comes in. So we did the Aussie exit, then jumped back in the water, and then went to that first turn buoy. And then obviously I was averaging 149 pace for 2.5 Ks, it says. I think Ironman had me at my mid swim at 153 per 100. So obviously a bit wrong there. I remember checking the pace and being happy at that turn buoy being, okay, I'm under 150, it should be okay swim, but obviously I wasn't at under 150. And then this is where we rejoined the lap with the other people on their first lap, and it honestly just got like super chaotic. This is where I really struggled. I just couldn't really get past people, and people were stopping everywhere, and yeah, it was just a really chaotic second loop. It was a lot harder than what I did not get into a rhythm for the whole last loop. I had Daniel on the back of me and we were just trying to tackle our way through it. But there was people swimming like sideways across you and you were like, where are they going? So you just double check to make sure you're going straight. But yeah, and then when you got to the turn buoys, there was like so many, I don't know if other people seen this, but there was just so many people just stopped at the turn buoy. So you just had to like move around them or move around. Because there's just a lot of people stopped at the turn buoys I found on that last turn buoy. So the turn buoy's up here, and then you turn around, you can see I dropped down to 2 minutes again, and then came back through, and then I missed where I was actually going here. I went a bit wider than what I should have. So when I did the exit, I didn't really follow it through. I didn't follow the line properly. I just couldn't see where the swim exit was. I was swimming towards the swim entry, like the Aussie exit entry. So yeah, obviously I think that's where my extra 80 meters added up. But overall, I was pretty stoked with it was 155 average swim. I think it ended up being like a 1 hour 13. It says 1 hour 14. I think the Ironman tracker had me at 1 hour 13 minute something swim. The Ironman tracker had me at a 1 hour 13 minute 54 second swim. So not an amazing swim, but given the conditions, it was an absolutely brutal swim. On that second lap, I'm pretty sure I ingested half the ocean. I just timed everything wrong, couldn't get into a rhythm, just swallowed absolutely everything. But yeah, I didn't push the swim too hard, but it was honestly a really, really tough swim. I felt like, I definitely did not train in those conditions ever. Yeah, I felt like that was a really, really tough swim for me, and obviously a tough swim for a lot of people as well. That pretty much wraps up the swim. Then I got out of the swim, did T1 in 5 minutes and 34 seconds, along with trying to vomit up the water. So the plan for me was to try and get rid of any salt water that I had or try to dilute it. So I couldn't vomit it up, so I just had 2 cups of water instead to try and dilute it. I was actually feeling okay, but I was still trying to vomit up just to see if I could save myself from anything that may happen later on in the race. Obviously didn't go to plan. So after we got out of T1, that was 5 minutes and 34 seconds, we then hopped onto the bike and I didn't have any fluids, anything to eat for 30 minutes. I just settled in and started cycling pretty well. Now I'm going to use the Coros splits here every 5K because they're roughly correct. I ended up with a 5 hour and 41 minute ride. So not 5 hours 46 like it says. So keep that into mind. We were way off target, but I'll explain why. This course is very flat, but it was very challenging with the winds. I couldn't import my Wahoo element into my Coros. So I don't know why, but I just couldn't import it. So basically we're gonna go with some of the data here, and then I'm gonna go to the Wahoo element at the end and show you guys like the final Wahoo element stuff as well. So starting on the bike, I actually felt really good. First 30 minutes, obviously didn't have anything to eat, drink, just tried to settle in. So the first 30 minutes, let's call it around here, averaged 32.66 Ks an hour. I was still pretty high in my heart rate. Obviously the HRM there is about top of zone 2. So yeah, hadn't pushed it too hard yet. And then after that, I tried to drink some sodium and do all that stuff again. And let me get to the first 2 hours here because this probably explains it a lot better. All right, so the first 30 minutes, I felt really, really good. So no carbs, no fluids at all consumed. I was riding very, very well. I was probably say my cadence was also around 90. And then I started having, started trying to drink again and get onto my carbs and everything like that. You notice here, like about that 30-minute mark, that was probably when I started my first sip of electrolytes again. And that's when I just started feeling like, oh, this isn't feeling too good. I found that on the very flat course of Busso, and the crosswinds and headwinds that we were getting, that as soon as you stop spinning, you basically started dropping Ks an hour really, really quickly. So it was very much like I constantly stay on that RPM for the day. But in saying that, I would say it's about 30 minutes I took my first sip and everything again. And then you can see like these 3 big spikes. That was literally when I had to start going to the toilet again. As soon as I drank again, it just started happening again. I just started having to go to the toilet again. And I was like, oh no, not what's going to happen at Port Mac. I literally thought I was going to go through the same experience, which I pretty much was again, just every single sip again. So the first 2 hours at 150 average BPM, I consumed 1.2 liters of fluid with a pH 1500 in it. So that was pretty much all I had for the ride. And then after that, I was like, okay, well, I need to make a decision on this, which was our plan with Precision, was we got to make a decision on this because we can't let it happen like we did in Port Mac. And basically after that, just slightly after, I went to a complete stop at an aid station. So yeah, I changed out, just put fresh water in everything. Probably could have just lost my 2 kilos or 2 liters on the back. Probably could have just got rid of them, but I was like, I may as well just keep them on the back. It doesn't really matter. It's a flat course, and 2 kilos is pretty negligible, really. So yeah, I after 2 hour mark, I felt extremely ill for 2 hours and 40 minutes for a very, very long time. Doesn't really say in this, but you can just sort of see like my heart rate starts just dropping like drastically. I just kept going down and down in my heart rate, just continued down. I literally went into zone 1 on my heart rate. I was doing like 29k an hour, 30k an hour, 29, 30. I was feeling like it was not a good feeling. Let's just say that. So from all the way from 2 hours up until about the 5 hour mark, you can see all the drops and everything. Like I was not feeling good. I ended up with an average heart rate of 144 and average speed of 31.6. It was in the end. It wasn't a very good ride, I would say. Our total time we were trying to target was 5 hours 15 to 5 hours 30 on this flat course. So we're a bit off target, but we were very much on target for the first 90k. I think I was averaging about 33k an hour, or 32.9k an hour for the first 90. The last 90, you can see it really started to drop off. And then I was basically only consuming water, just sips of water, because that's all I could tolerate. So just sips of water, and then obviously having my carbs. So in total on the bike, after my first 2 hours where I had 1.2 liters, I only had 250 mils of sodium after that, so pH 1000 in that. And then I had 600 milliliters of plain water and 2 caffeinated gels. I had a caffeinated gel at 130 kilometers and another caffeinated gel an hour after that. Then I had 390 grams of carbs in that top bottle on my flow gel. So I went pretty well on the bike despite me feeling very, very bad. It was not a very good ride for me. You can see like the last 20-30 minutes, I was able to get my heart rate back up. So you can see that down here. This is a really, really strong headwind coming back into town. But you can see that I was actually able to get my heart rate back up because I started feeling better again. If we add heart rate to the graph as well, you can see it just gradually declining like the whole day because I just started feeling really bad. And then I was able to start picking it back up on that 5th hour mark. You can see like I was really trying to get it back up because I was like, what am I doing? And I started to feel a bit better at the 5 hour mark, which is 3 hours of not feeling good. It's a very long time to not be feeling good. So yeah, I was pretty bad for 3 hours, and then I basically kept riding, was able to get my heart rate back up and fluctuating. towards that back end of the ride, which obviously allowed me to have a pretty good run off the bike. I think without changing my fluid out and just going for sips of water, it could have honestly been pretty disastrous. Could have been the same thing that happened at Port Mac. I'm glad that I made that decision, swapped everything out and just continued on and got through it. Although the time was not what we expected, was not what we wanted, it's obviously like an hour and 20-minute decrease from Port Macquarie. If I go on my Wahoo Element for a second, so the plan for the bike was to average about 100 watts to 200 watts. I ended up normalizing 151 watts, which is like 50 watts less than the max I wanted to and 30 watts less than what I was hoping for. Like, I would have been very happy coming out the day with 170, 180 watts, depending on the conditions, because the conditions were really, really tough. During the ride, it just felt like we were constantly fighting wind the entire time. It felt like we never got a tailwind. It just felt like constant crosswinds and headwinds. The ride was tough, and then when it started downpouring, everyone was just like laughing. We were just like, what is going on in Bustleton today? But yeah, it's usually like 25 plus degrees. So it was a very weird day. You can see that I normalized 151 watts, which is astronomically low. It's nowhere near where I should have been. Yeah, you can see my power chart was 144 watts. But yeah, you can sort of see that I was nowhere near where I wanted to. I spent 2 hours and 22 minutes of 42% of the race in active recovery in my power zone. So obviously it was nowhere near where we wanted. It's honestly a pretty shocking result, or pretty bad result, but there was really nothing I could do at the time. I honestly just felt horrible. There was just 3 hours on the bike of feeling genuinely like, it was so hard to describe it, but it was 3 hours on the bike of just feeling like genuinely awful. All I could do was just have my carbs and drink some sips of water at aid stations, and that's all I did for 3 hours. I pretty much consumed very minimal. I knew that it was going to come back and bite me on the Mara, but it's all I could do. I wasn't going to spend every single 20 minutes going to the toilet again. So I just decided to, well, now obviously not going to have fluid, or I'm going to have very minimal fluid and just suck it up and see if I can start beginning to feel better towards the back end of the race. And then obviously I did for the last 15K, I started being able to get my heart rate back up. And then 10 minutes to go off the bike, I started feeling a lot better. I just felt like myself again. And that leads us into transition 2. T2 was honestly pretty quick. Did a 4-minute transition, which I'm pretty happy with. I ran off without tying up my alpha flies. So I was feeling really, really good when I got off the bike. And I was like, all right, sweet, let's just send it out for this Mara. The plan was to run about a 5-minute pace. Originally, when I was on the bike at about like 110 k's in, I was like, oh man, there's no way I'm running off this. But we got off the bike and I was like, all right, I'm feeling good. Like, I feel like I can genuinely go run a 5-minute pace. So that's pretty much what I did. I set off, ran out, had to go to the toilet quickly on that second K. That's why I stopped. But you can see I just went out straight at my top zone 2. 5:03 pace, 4:58, 4:59. Then I hovered around that 5-minute pace for a while. Let's just go all the way out to a half Mara. Even though we had 4 loops and 6K-ish, we had to run directly into a 30 kilometer an hour headwind each time. That was probably the most brutal part of the run. But for 21K, I averaged 5:10 pace. So I was pretty happy with that. I knew that like that was as quick as I was really going to go. Average heart rate of 151, so still in zone 2. And yeah, I was pretty stoked with how the first half of the race went. I did know that it was going to bite me back later, purely because I didn't do any training where I trained over 28 kilometers. I didn't do like a 30K run. I didn't do a 35K run. That's just what happens when you get injured and you can't do that sort of stuff and you can't get that volume in. The nutrition plan for the run went very, very smoothly. Basically, I had a soft flask with 4 gels in it and a pH 1500, and I'd take a cup from the aid station, drink the cup, take a swig of the pH, put a cup of water over the top of me, grab some ice, chuck the ice whether in the front or chuck it in the back of my tri-kit, and that's what I did the pretty much entire race. So I did that. I also had 2 sodium capsules as soon as I got off the bike. And then 45 minutes later, I had another 2 sodium capsules. And then at about the 2-hour mark, I had another 2 sodium capsules. That was purely because I knew that I didn't have any electrolytes on the bike, so I was trying to front load it a little bit, but I reckon it saved me a lot. And on the third loop coming around, I grabbed my second soft flask. That would have been at about, I would say, so that second loop where I came around would have been about the 20, let's call it like 22, 23 kilometers is when I grabbed my second soft flask. So yeah, it was going very, very smoothly. The hydration plan went very well. On the run, not so much on the bike. On the run, it went amazing. I literally couldn't have asked for a better hydration plan on the run. You can see here, I all of a sudden go to 5:30 paces, where you can see on that top right, we were going back into the headwind. So this run here was directly into 30k headwind. So you can see my paces just go all the way up to 5:30s. Don't know what I was doing here, walking or something, but yeah, so the paces go all the way out to 5:30s, and then coming back, and then we hit the 35k mark. This is where I started cramping. So you can see I just stopped. This is where I really started cramping. I just walked past my mom and I was like, oh, I'm gonna cramp. I never felt like I was gonna bonk. I never felt like that. I knew it was gonna catch up to me cramping because I didn't have enough on the bike. But that was just because I couldn't tolerate it. I literally just could not have anything on the bike. I was able to have all my carbs and everything like that, but I was just not able to have fluid on the bike again. So it is what it is. Basically, the way I tackled these kilometers that you're about to see, so 35 all the way, these were all into a headwind. So it was basically 35 kilometers. So at the 35k mark, this whole stretch was into headwind, which was so brutal. 35, 614, 608, 636, 624, 618, 612. They were all directly into headwind. I had a hamstring cramp both sides, and it just felt like they were both gonna ping, but they never did. Just felt like it. And basically I'd run 500 meters and they'd get really, really tight, like cramping again. So I'd stretch them both out and then did the same thing, 500 meters stretch, 500 meters stretch, did that whole thing all the way up the headwind. A legend gave me a cramp fix. It didn't do anything, but a legend gave it to me. So thanks so much, mate. You saved my life. Despite it not really helping, it was definitely like a shock to me at least. Basically did that the whole way up into the headwind, and then came back down with the tailwind where I was at, I only had like a K and a half left to the finish line. And obviously your life gets a bit easier when you're doing that. The maritime was, I think 3:49 on the Ironman app. Yeah, 3 hours 49 on the Ironman app, 3 hours 50 here. So the Ironman time was about 3 hours and 49 minutes for the marathon. So sub 4 mara, pretty stoked with that. I knew I was never gonna be around 3:30, but I went out at that pace, just I felt really good. So pretty stoked to hit a sub 4 in my second Ironman, second ever marathon. I think that's pretty sick. Considering how I felt on the bike, I'm absolutely stoked with that. And then my total gun time was 10 hours, 54 minutes and 39 seconds. So that is my entire race breakdown. That is my second ever triathlon, my second Ironman. It was extremely tough conditions. Matt Burton, for those that know Birdo down in WA, I met him in the cafe the next morning and just sent him a thank you message for his time, and he just said, good job on the day. It was pretty much like a baptism of fire. When you know Birdo says it's a hard day, it's definitely a hard day. So I talked to a few people during the race as well, and they were just saying this is the worst condition Busso's ever given. Maybe if I sign up for an Ironman, don't sign up for the same one as me, because in both my Ironmans, I've seemed to bring the bad weather with me. But yeah, I did have a good day. I just didn't really have much to give to the camera. I felt really bad on the bike. And then coming off for the Mara, I didn't really see Sean filming or Casey filming until I started cramping and feeling really bad towards the end of the race. So I didn't really see them apart from that. Everyone sort of just gets lost in the crowd, and if you're so focused, you sort of just don't pay attention. Yeah, I honestly just didn't give the camera much. Sean came up to me and ran with me when I was running that back straight and cramping, and I was like, dude, I can't give you anything. Like I felt bad not giving the camera anything, but I just couldn't. Like I had no energy at all. I was more mentally drained from cramping. I wish I had more energy to give the camera, but I really had nothing. I was just really trying to get it done. But I'd say I was probably out of tears as well. I started tearing up and having a bit of a cry at the 30K mark, because I knew that no matter what I did now, like I did sub 11. I know it's a weird thing to say 12 kilometers out, but when you have so much belief in yourself, you know that you're going to get it done. So I knew that I was going to get it done, and it's not like I was redlining my run. Like I was running pretty conservative. I did the whole run in zone 2. I came off the Ironman like pretty much running by Wednesday, which obviously meant I probably didn't go hard enough. But that's probably what you get when you're 2 hours and 40, 2 hours and 20 minutes in active recovery, what's on the bike. So yeah, I had a pretty rough day on the bike, and that was all undone by the swim. Definitely a rough start to the day. Ended on a good marathon. You got to be happy with sub 4 in your second ever marathon, second ever Ironman, second ever triathlon. So you got to be happy with that. I'm pretty stoked with the sub 4 mara. But yeah, the swim definitely rocked most of my day. So massive kudos to everyone that did Ironman Bustleton, because that full distance on the bike, it was definitely a really, really hard day. Swim and bike were definitely both really hard. I'd say they were pretty challenging. And honestly, if I wasn't able to hold my TT position for most of the day, it would have been a much slower ride at a normalized 151 watts. But I feel like my TT position is very good, and I was head down most of the day. So I'm pretty lucky with being able to hold aero most of the day despite feeling so horribly, which I think resulted in still maintaining above a 31 km/h ride. And just to lastly cap it off, this was my overall sodium intake, carb intake, fluid intake, caffeine intake. So overall, I took in about 600 milligrams of sodium per hour, 84 grams of carbs per hour between the bike and the run, and then 417 mils of fluid an hour, which is pretty negligible. 426 milligrams of caffeine. So this time I did have caffeine, had 4 caffeine gels. My relative sodium concentration was 1,440 milligrams per liter, which was bang on. It was just I didn't have enough fluid, I would say, but I also wasn't working hard enough. So I don't sweat a lot anyway. I probably overdid the fluid originally. I thought I was working harder than what I was for the amount of fluid that I was having, which I was only having about 600 mils an hour, but I really got to figure that out. I've spoken to the guys at Precision and everyone, and we believe the next steps for me will be going to do some short courses, or in my training as well, doing more swim bricks. I don't really need to do any bike into run bricks because I don't have any issue with getting off the bike and running. My major issue is getting off the swim, going into a ride. So we've decided that in the coming year, obviously I've got a 15K swim coming up, but after that, even before that, I'll be doing like race pace swims, 3 or 4K swims, into like 2-hour rides to try and figure out what's going on and figure out what I'm screwing up. So that is pretty much the major takeaway. I should have been doing swim bricks before, but I don't feel like it's very common, very underutilized, I would say. I literally none of my friends do it. No one that I know does it, but no one that I know has the same trouble or issue as me. So that's the thing. It's very unique, but yeah, I definitely have to go do some more swim bricks. You'll see me doing some really weird stuff in the new year just to try and get ready and get right again. My next full Ironman race, I'm not sure where, but it will be going for sub 10. Pretty ballsy to say, pretty out there to say, considering I went 13 hours 13 and then 10 hours 54 then, in pretty tough conditions. But I won't be rushing into my next full. I honestly want to take like 12 months to prepare for my next full, do some cool stuff along the way, like marathons and 15K swim and do everything like that. And then my next shot will try to be a sub 10. I feel like if everything goes right in the swim and bike, I can do it very well, but I just need to get a lot better cycling, and I need to figure out this issue with swimming into the bike. Yeah, this swimming into the bike thing is very unique. I don't know anyone that experienced or has experienced the same thing as me. I know 2 guys on the weekend actually had the same issue that I had at Port Mac. They just kept drinking and kept peeing, and then basically on the run, same thing happened to them, what it did to me in Port Mac. So obviously it does happen to people, but not anyone that I've heard that's able to figure out a solution for it. So I'm basically going to be doing like race pace swims into long rides, and that's how I'm going to try and figure out what's going on, what can't I tolerate and why can't I tolerate it. The guys at Precision are thinking it's got to do with chloride and it's got to do with the salt water that I'm swallowing and the salt water in my mouth. So every time that I take a sip, I'm having more chloride. So yeah, I'm basically going to try and figure out that in the new year, because that is like a major problem. I'm going to be doing probably St Kilda, the Olympic 2x U triathlon, most likely. It's either that or I'll be doing pier to pub swim. Yeah, I'm going to be doing either one of those. I'm not sure yet. Prior to my 15 kilometer swim, it was honestly something that I probably should have done prior to my Ironman. But it's been 2 times now, both my triathlons. So I think it's time to do some short courses and some weird training stuff to try and figure out what's going on, because it's going to be the major thing that I need to basically look at. That was a really long one, so I hope you enjoyed the race breakdown. Haven't done anything like this before. So yeah, let me know how I went. Let me know what I can improve on, and I'll see you guys on the next one. The full vlog is coming out soon. So thank you.